Good evening, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Nate Eaton. Good to be with you here for Courtroom Insider. Apologies for the late start. And, we're kind of out of practice. We haven't covered a big trial in a couple months, at least day to day. And so we set up a new studio arrangement. My apologies for being late. And it was a big full day of testimony in the Kouri Richins trial. If you're new to us, if you're new to Courtroom Insider, my name is Nate Eaton. I work for East Idaho News, but I've covered courts and crimes for 20 years now. I've been in the news business. Of course, we started Courtroom Insider with Lori Daybell's trial back in 2023 in Boise, Idaho. Continued it up with Chad Daybell's trial in 2024, and then went to Arizona last year for 2 trials for Lori Vallows. And we are continuing to cover trials, this time a little bit to the south of where we're at in Park City, Utah, where Kouri Richins is on trial. And today was day 1 of that trial. And we're going to walk you through what happened. People started lining up very early, as is tradition in these type of things, where, oh, look, it's my head on top of my head. I better change that. There we go. They started lining up 4:45. There's only 24 seats in the courtroom for the public. And then there's some media seats, and then the families of Kouri and Eric Richins are able to get seats as well. So very limited seats, and from everything I have heard, it was very packed in the courthouse. I did not get a ticket to be in the courtroom today, a wristband, therefore I'm not there. I was not there, but I do plan to attend coming up here in the next few weeks, because this trial is expected to last 4 weeks. Let me run through the charges with you. She is facing 1 count of aggravated murder, 1 count of attempted aggravated murder, 2 counts of insurance fraud, and 1 count of forgery. Her husband, Eric Richins, died in 2022 of a fentanyl poisoning, and the prosecutor came right out of the bat today and addressed that issue. Here were the witnesses we heard from today. So we had opening statements from the prosecution, from the defense. Remember that there are this opening statements and closing arguments are not evidence. They're not witnesses. So you can't take, as a juror, you can't take what is said during opening statements and closing arguments as fact, as evidence. You have to take the evidence what the witnesses say. But you can obviously consider it, and it's a place where in the beginning they can paint pictures of what this trial is going to be, and at the end they can kind of wrap it up and let the jurors know what the case is going to be about. So here were the witnesses we heard from today. Whoops, let me go back one. Eugene Richins, that is Eric Richins' father. Katie Richins Benson, that's her sister. Clint Benson, that's his sister. So Eugene is Eric's dad. Katie is Eric's sister. Clint is Katie's husband, so Eric's brother-in-law. And then Detective Vincent Wynn. I apologize, I spelled his last name wrong. He is a deputy with the Summit County Sheriff's Office. The judge said this. I'm going to say it too. For the sake of ease, because there's a lot of Richins in this case, I'm going to likely refer to everybody by their first name. So I'll likely refer to Kouri as Kouri, Eric as Eric, the siblings by their names, just to keep it simple for you. If it was just one, I could say Richins, like we normally do in news, and go with the last name. But I'm going to use their first names. So hope you're okay with that. Okay, let's get straight to the opening statements. Prosecution had a chance to get up. This is Brad Bloodworth with the Summit County Prosecutor's Office. This is how he started. After the judge gave instruction to the jurors and swore them in, these were the very first things the jurors heard today in the Kouri Richins trial. Take a listen.
It is the evening of March the 3rd, 2022. The defendant, Kouri Richins, her husband, Eric Richins, and their 3 children, 9-year-old Carter, 7-year-old Ashton, and 5-year-old Weston, are at their home in Camas. Eric Richins lived for his 3 boys. At 7:22 p.m., Kouri Richins' boyfriend, Robert Josh Grossman, texts Kouri Richins an image of 2 people romantically kissing. The image is captioned, "Love you." At 8:36, Kouri Richins replies, "Love you." The boys go to bed. Kouri Richins makes Eric a drink and takes it to him in their bedroom. He drinks on the bed. She departs the bedroom. Kouri Richins returns to the bedroom at about 3:00 a.m. She feels that Eric is cold. She nudges him. He does not respond. She sees that he is stiff and pale. His mouth is wide open. At 3:06 a.m., Kouri Richins unlocks her cell phone. She travels 243 feet beginning at 3:08 a.m. She unlocks her cell phone again at 3:10, 3:15, and twice at 3:19. At 3:21, Kouri Richins unlocks her cell phone and calls 911. Paramedics respond, but they are unable to revive Eric. He has no pulse. He is cold. They pronounce him dead at 3:58 a.m. on March the 4th, but they think he has been dead a while.
Okay, so that's how the prosecutor kicked off the prosecutor's opening statement. He went on to say that Kouri Richins had owed $4.5 million to over 20 different lenders when Eric died, that she took out loans to pay off other loans, that 5 months before his death, she withdrew 200 transactions totaling over $300,000 in the 5 months before his death, that the day he died, she was scheduled to close on a Midway mansion that would have taken on an additional $3.2 million in debt. This is the mansion. Now, this was a rundown, dilapidated mansion that I think had been foreclosed or there was issues with it. And so she was going to buy it and then flip it. And so this came up, this image, this Midway mansion came up a few times during the trial today. Eric's inheritance was worth over $4 million, according to the prosecutor. And they said that Kouri knew this, that if he died, there was $4 million that would be inherited. That would obviously cover the debt that she had. The prosecutor went on to show some messages that, to be honest, I did not know that this was happening, these messages. I believe this is the first time we're seeing them. But this was February 15th, 2022. 15 days before she's charged with murder, but one day after she's charged with attempted murder. She texts her boyfriend, Josh Grossman, "If I divorced right now and asked you to marry me tomorrow, would you? I just want to lay on the couch and cuddle you, watch a murder documentary, and snuggle." That's one of the texts sent. Would love to know your thoughts about the texts. 5 days after being charged, so the 19th, this was the 15th, 4 days later, "Babe, I miss you. I want you today, every day. Not just sexually, but physically, mentally, every day when I wake up. I do want a future together. I do want you. Figure life out together. If he could just go away and you could just be here. If he could just go away and you could just be here, life would be so perfect. I love you. IDK, what my deal is today. I'm sorry." So, those are those texts. Then, "I have a crazy dream. You quit your job. I divorce and come up with millions and millions." Eric died on March 4th. So, this is before he died. "I divorce and come up with millions and millions. We buy Midway and live in the guest house and rent out the huge house as a big event center, that mansion. $15,000 a day like they charge down the road, maybe $12,000 to stay competitive. And we will just run the event center as our day job and hang out every day, raise some kids, have a little farm. Deal?" Then we have the next one. 16 days after Eric died, she sends this link to a resort, an all-inclusive in St. Martin. Are we there yet? On the 9th of April, "I think I want you to be my husband one day." Then, okay, I'll pause right there. Sorry. So we see all those text messages that she sends to her boyfriend. The prosecutor goes on to talk about Carmen Lauber. She's the housekeeper who cleaned Kouri's house and purchased pills from a guy named Robert Crozier. And they met up at a Maverick in Draper, Utah, where they got these pills. Now, these pills, the prosecution alleged, had fentanyl in them. But the defense will go on to argue that it was just oxycodone, that at the time the dealer did not know about fentanyl. This was 2022. And that's what was in there. So they pause to talk about that. Then we hear about a sandwich that Kouri made for her husband on Valentine's Day. She wrote in a text message, so she makes a sandwich on Valentine's Day. Eric then texts her, I'm going to lay down for a bit. If I don't start getting better, I'm going to head to the hospital. So he's clearly not feeling well. This is Valentine's Day. But guess what? A few hours later, he goes to work. He's fine. So he says, I'm going to lay down for a bit. I'm not feeling well. The prosecutor lays out a timeline. 11th of February, 2022, Kouri Richins, at her request, Carmen Lauber purchases those pills from Robert Crozier. I talked about that. 3 days later, she's charged with attempted murder. She wasn't charged on that day. That's when the crime allegedly happened, Valentine's Day of 2022. Then, the 26th, which isn't today. Today's the 23rd. Almost there. At Kouri Richins' request, Carmen Lauber purchases, quote, something stronger from Robert Crozier. And these people, I bet you, will take the stand. So you've got the request to get the drugs, then the attempted murder, and then about 12 days passed when Kouri allegedly asked Carmen to get something stronger. And then the murder, the death of Eric happens less than 10 days later on March 3rd/4th. Early morning of the 4th is when 911 is called. You got all that? Now we go on to hear about the autopsy and what is discovered once Eric dies in his autopsy. Listen.
The autopsy and toxicology report shows that Eric Richins died of fentanyl poisoning. He had several times a lethal amount of fentanyl in his blood and more in his stomach. And that extraordinary amount of fentanyl was intentional, not accidental. The evidence will prove that time and again, Kouri Richins tried to cover up her attempted murder and ultimate murder of Eric Richins. When confronted with Eric's reaction on Valentine's Day, Kouri Richins text messaged her friend. It was Valentine's Day, and Eric and I were both working from home that day, and I ordered lunch from Mirror Lake. He never broke out in hives or used an EpiPen. I was fucking with him. Bailey was there too. He said the sandwich hurt his stomach, so he was going to nap. No hives, no EpiPen. Kouri Richins was an hour away from Eric Richins with her boyfriend. Regarding the morning of Eric Richins' death, Kouri Richins wrote in a notebook that she entered their room at 3:20 a.m. She saw that when she nudged Eric, nothing happened. She grabbed her phone and called 911. She first grabbed her phone at least 3:06 a.m. and delayed calling 911 at least 15 minutes.
Okay, you catch that? Grabbed her phone. There was movement around the house with the phone for at least 15 minutes, according to the prosecutor, and then she called 911. The prosecutor tells the jurors that Kouri then goes on to write a book called Are You With Me? About grief. They stress that Eric did not accidentally kill himself. did not kill himself or die accidentally. And then they show, this is how they end their opening statement. Memes that Kouri sent around after 8:30 a.m. So Eric Richins' body is found in the 3 o'clock a.m. hour. The paramedics come, police come. They wheel out his body a few hours later. Then around 8:30, these memes, and this to me was pretty eye-opening. She sends these memes to her boyfriend. The top one, the guy from Dumb and Dumber wiping his nose with money. Then Kevin Spacey, idiots, idiots everywhere. And then Trump, I'm really rich. Wow. Then it's the defense's turn. And this is how, so I showed you how the prosecution opened their opening statement. This is how the defense did. This is Catherine Nestor. She's the defense attorney. She and her colleague are also on the Tyler Robinson murder case in Utah with Charlie Kirk, the guy accused of killing Charlie Kirk. So she's very busy. But let me play you right now how she started her opening.
What's the address of the emergency? My husband's not breathing. He's cold. Okay, what's the address? 282 Willow Court. 282 Willow Court? Uh-huh. Okay, what's a good phone number in case we get disconnected? 435 671 4987. Okay, it's going to be in Francis. Uh-huh. Okay, tell me exactly what happened. I don't know. I just came in. I was sleeping with my kids. Okay, I can't understand you. I need you to take a deep breath. What's going on? I don't know. I was sleeping in with my kids. I just came in our bed, and I turned over, and he's just cold. He's just cold. Who's cold? My husband. I turned the light off. And he's not breathing? No. He's not breathing? No. I need you to confirm it for me. Is he not breathing? No. Okay, can you do CPR? No, I don't know how. You don't know? I'm going to tell you how to. Are you willing to do CPR? Yeah. Okay.
Those were the sounds of a wife becoming a widow. 6.5 hours before that terrible phone call, Eric and Kouri Richins were in that same bedroom, and they were celebrating. They were celebrating because Kouri was about to close on the biggest real estate deal that her company had ever done. She was about to close on something called the Midway Mansion. Slide 2, please. A sprawling, multi-million-dollar home in Midway that had been abandoned before construction was completed. And the plan was to fix it up just enough to resell it. In other words, repair the windows, make it look nice. There had been vandalism inside, clean it all out, get it ready to flip and sell. And the concept is to sell it for millions more than the bargain basement price they got, because it was just a dilapidated, falling apart, abandoned property. And the plan was to flip it for so much that she was going to make millions of dollars of profit, at least $2 million for her and for all of her investors. And Eric was a part of this. Eric had been out at the property that very day, the day that he died, spreading gravel to make it look nice for open houses.
Okay, so on the second row is Eric's family, and on the fifth row is Kouri's. And they'll rotate every day who sits where. So that shot, you saw some of her family and some of his. So the defense attorney goes on to say that Eric made good money, that they did have marital issues. And she admits that Kouri made some dumb decisions in their marriage. She talks about how they had tons of money. They had a garage full of exotic animals. He'd gone to Mexico to go hunting, that they had snowmobiles, that he loved being a dad. She says that you're going to hear a lot, but you have to judge this based off the evidence and the testimony of the witnesses. That's what it has to boil down to. This is how the defense ended their opening statement.
Picture of a young woman in a fur coat. See it? Now look again. You see a witch? Nose, mouth. There's going to be times in this case where the state is going to discuss facts with certain witnesses, and they're going to show you the witch. And I'm going to take those same facts and those same witnesses, and I'm going to show you a widow. At the end of the trial, if you can still see both faces, that's reasonable doubt. The judge has instructed you that the burden of proof in this case lies with this table. Katie, can you put up slide 13? Can you make it a little bigger, please? The law presumes the defendant is not guilty of the crime charge. She's innocent right now, and you have to accept that to do your job. The presumption persists unless the prosecution's evidence convinces you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. Katie, can you put up slide 14? This burden, this is a heavy burden for the state. We know that. And our Constitution gives them that burden. Our Constitution, that same Constitution, promises Kouri Richins a fair trial by a jury of her peers, and that's you, her fellow citizens, who took an oath to swear that you will stand between Kouri and the government and make them meet their duty before they can get through you.
Okay, so that is how the opening statements went. We have the full things on YouTube. I would encourage you to go watch them. It was, both were pretty solid, I would say. You know, sometimes opening statements can drone on and on and on, and they can be pretty boring. I wouldn't say in this case. These two sides had pretty decent opening statements. Now it was time for the first witness, Eric Richins' father named Eugene. He is married to Linda, who passed away. They loved outdoors, Eric and Eugene. They loved being outside. They stressed the importance of education to their kids. They loved sports. They loved being involved in the community. Eric loved coaching soccer. He just loved life. The morning of March 4th, Eugene gets a call that changed his life. Here's how he described that morning.
When you received a phone call about Eric?
I did, yes.
Who called you?
Kouri did.
What did she tell you?
She said that Eric wasn't breathing.
Where, sir, were you when you received that call?
I was at my home,
Is that the ranch?
yes.
Is it in Hennifer?
It is.
What did you do next?
I got over there as quickly as I could.
And by over there, do you mean Eric's house?
I did, yes.
And is that in Camas, Summit County?
Yes, Francis. Mhm.
Francis? Do you recall about what time you arrived at Eric's house?
I would say that 4:15, 4:30, right through that.
Who was there when you arrived?
My daughter Katie was there. Kouri was there. The first responders were there. Kouri's mother Lisa was there. My son-in-law Clint was there. And my two granddaughters were there. As the three boys were there.
About how long were you there that morning?
Oh, approximately to 10:30, I believe.
During that morning, what, if anything, did Kouri Richins say to you?
don't recall her saying much of anything to me.
Did she?
When I came in and my daughter Katie told me that Eric was gone, they helped me onto the couch, and I don't ever recall of even talking to Kouri, to be quite honest with you.
What a heartbreaking moment to have to go and your young son is dead. The defense, or the prosecution, the defense had no questions for Eugene. He went on to talk about how they fish, hiked. He was very likable. I talked about that. He loved his kids. And then he discussed how he got a call about his son's death from Kouri, saying that Eric had died of the same thing that his mom had. She died of fungus in her lungs. And the father, Eugene, was caught off guard because he noticed that his son didn't have any of the symptoms that his wife had. But Kouri said the medical examiner called me and told me that this is how he died. Then Eugene's daughter, he called Eugene's daughter, who had spoken with the medical examiner's office, and they said, we haven't released anything like that. We haven't released any information about his death yet. We don't know what you're talking about. So Eugene was perplexed. One, the fact that the ME basically said, we don't know what she's talking about. And two, his own son did not have any of the symptoms that his wife had when he watched her die. Well, then it was time for the sister to take the stand. Kouri Richins Benson, very close growing up, went to school together, loved being outdoors together. She said her brother was very likable. Everybody was his best friend. He'd stop and give people on the street his jacket if they were cold, loved his kids. Then she was asked about a prenup that was signed between Eric and Kouri. And the condition of the prenup was if they divorced, then Kouri didn't get anything. If he died, it didn't count. And then a trust was set up to basically mirror this prenup, it sounds like. The trust was something Eric set up, and Katie was the trustee. And the home was in the name of Katie. The home was in the name of the trust. And therefore, if the trust had control of the home, Katie would have the control of it because she was the trustee. Katie and her husband actually lived in that home before Kouri and Eric moved in. So the home had been in the family for quite some time. Katie was also asked about the morning she got the phone call saying that her brother had died. And she had just spoken with him. She said nothing was wrong. He sounded fine. There was no issue. But she got a call saying one of her best friends was dead. Here's how she described that.
Where were you when you received that call?
So, my daughter was sick. She was only 3 at the time. And she'd just thrown up. I had taken her out of her room and brought her into my room. And I had just set her on the bed, and my husband had gone into the room to check on my other daughter that was a little bit older to make sure she was okay. I just set her on the bed, and I had my phone with me. I set it on the bed, and I saw my dad calling. And I picked up and said, Dad, how did you know I was up with my sick little girl? And he started, that's when he said, Eric's not breathing, Eric's not breathing. I screamed. I fell to the floor. My husband heard me and came running in, and I was screaming, he's not breathing. My husband thought that it was my daughter, since she had just thrown up. So he ran over to her and said, she's okay, Katie, she's okay. And I said, no, it's Eric. And so I picked up my daughter that was right there. My husband went and got my other baby out of bed, and we ran out of the house.
Did you go to Eric's house?
Yeah, we went straight to my brother's house.
Who was there when you arrived?
Sorry, guys. This was the worst day of my life. I'm sorry. When I got there was a bunch of emergency personnel, police officers, and Kouri and her mom, Lisa, were there.
Did you see the boys?
That was one of the first things I did, was try to find my nephews. They were in Ashton's room. I don't know how to orient you guys to the house. So as you walk in, Carter's room was to the right, and then you walk down a hall, and Ashton's room was the first room on the left, then it was Weston's room, then a bathroom, and then my brother's room. So the boys were located in Ashton's room. So there were police everywhere, there was EMS. I didn't know everything that was going on, but I didn't want the boys right there where everyone was. There's police right outside their door. So I went and got them and took them upstairs. So in my brother's house, you go up some stairs, and over the garage, there's a bonus room. And they had everything in there. They had a TV, a Nintendo, all their toys in there. So I took them up there because I didn't want them by all the hustle and bustle of all the police and everything. So I took them up there, got them situated, then ran outside to my car to get my husband and my two daughters so that my husband could watch the boys and make sure that they were okay.
We'll talk more about the boys that day.
Okay.
Were you able to observe Kouri Richins that morning?
Yes, I did.
When you walked into the home, what were your immediate observations of her?
So like I had told you, we had gone on plenty of family vacations together. Kouri had been on the family vacations with us. I walked in, I kind of flung through the door, and I saw Kouri standing on the other side of the staircase. She just shook her head at me. Sorry guys, bear with me, I apologize. And I knew right then my brother was gone. And I fell to the floor. She stayed over there. I observed that she was not how she normally was when we would go on overnights. She was very well put together. She had a matching pajama-esque outfit on. Her hair was all done up. She wasn't crying like I was. She wasn't hysterical. Just stood there and shook her head no at me.
She went on to talk about cremation and the burial of her brother, that he had always expressed a desire to be buried, not be cremated. But when they had a family meeting, apparently she testified that Kouri and her mother brought up the fact that he was going to get cremated. Actually, her mother did. And Kouri even had a look of surprise. And it ended up, after much debate, they did end up burying him. He was not cremated. Now, one point, a discussion came up where the judge sent the jury out. And you haven't heard, if you didn't watch that, you have not heard from the judge yet. So I'm going to play a little clip of you hearing the judge, because so many of you love the guy's voice. And I admit I'm jealous of his voice. I wish I had his voice, because he could narrate a documentary, or he could run a radio show. He's got such a good voice. But the issue here is a little different than other trials I've covered, like Daybell. You remember in Daybell how the prosecution and the defense agreed that if they both wanted to call the same witness, they widened the scope of what could be asked on cross-examination. So while normally how it works is the prosecutors, whatever they ask, whatever the defense does on cross-examination, they have to fit within what the prosecution's asked. They can't just start asking whatever. They can then call a witness themselves if they want as a defense witness, and then the state can cross-examine based on those things, but you have to stay within the scope. In Daybell, they widened that out because witnesses were traveling from out of town, and in order to save time, they did. Well, the defense attorney in this case today brought up the fact that she wanted to widen the scope on Kouri Richins Bester because of the because she was there, and there was some back and forth over why that should be allowed and why that shouldn't be. And here's how that went and what the judge ended up ruling.
Where were you when you received that call?
Coming because witnesses, but there are multiple witnesses that the state is going to call, including Ms. Richins Benson, who also have information that relates to our case. She's just one, there's lots more. Obviously, if the state is going to shut us down from asking any topic that he didn't cover in direct, then we're going to have to recall all of these people. And this trial is going to get a lot longer, inconvenience a lot more people.
Well, it's the exact same amount of time. Tell me why it would be longer. It
Because
just complicates the directed verdict motion.
because of the fact that all of these witnesses will be required to come back twice, get resworn. We're going to have to lay foundation again that's already been laid to refresh the memory of jurors. We're going to have to go back over topics that have already been talked about just to refresh the memory of the jurors. We're going to be using exhibits that are already here, keyed up, ready to go. This court has the ability to control what happens in this courtroom. If you want us to call all these people twice, we will, but it seems a ridiculous imposition of burden on not only the witnesses, but the jurors to have to say, we're going to hear from them now and in 2 weeks from now. There's perfectly within your power to say, we're going to do everything this jury needs to do now. The state has the ability to come back on redirect and address anything that we bring up that they didn't bring up. But it seems a very inefficient way to run a trial, and it seems to be super hard on these witnesses to have to come back here twice and go through this 2 weeks apart. And especially, what happens if something happens to them? What happens if she gets sick or she leaves the country and I'm stuck and I didn't get a chance to redo her? Then we've got a real problem in terms of the trial and the record. So, I mean, I've just never had a judge require me to do that unless it's just really unusual circumstances. So we're asking that every witness where we have information that the state decides not to go into, to let us do it now, not have to recall this witness, and then finally excuse her from her subpoena responsibilities.
You understand that to the extent the state raises relevance objections to your direct of this witness or another, I'm only going to have what's in the record so far. I won't have the whole picture to rule on that relevance objection.
I am not worried about anything we're going to talk with her about being decided to be relevant.
Okay.
I mean, it's clearly relevant. I'm just not worried about that.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, we're only talking to her about what happened with Eric, with this case, we're not going into anything outside of that.
Okay. Mr. Bloodworth.
Your Honor, the state prefers to present its case in an order that the state believes will provide a proper narrative to the jury without interruption. Sometimes a proper way to present a case is not most efficient way to present a case. And in an aggravated murder case, propriety has to take precedence over efficiency. So far, all these witnesses are local. I could see perhaps if there's an out-of-town witness, rather than inconvenience in the witness with an extended stay or repeated travel, we could make an exception. But as the rule, this trial is no different than any other trial where, pursuant to the rules, the scope of cross-examination is limited by the scope of direct.
So the prosecution said no, they've got to stay within the bounds. And the judge ended up agreeing with them. They said, you can call her back if you want as your own witness. And then he said, she's not even on your witness list. The defense didn't even have her on the witness list. And it ended up, when her testimony was done, the defense said she can be released. We don't need her. So a lot of talk about it. It's interesting to hear the back and forth in the legal arguments, but ultimately it sounds like they got what they needed out of her. But now it was time for the defense to ask her some questions. And the majority of the testimony, or a large portion of it at least, was about the trust and the trustee, the fact that she was the trustee over the home and Kouri had to go for her for money. Also, there's a civil suit that's going on between the families, all of that's just separate over money and whatnot. So that kind of came into play, and the defense attorney had to say, we're only talking to this, don't bring up the lawsuit. But here's a little bit of what Miss Nestor asked Kouri, or asked Eric's sister Katie on the stand.
What's your understanding of what, if there was no litigation, what you, as the trustee of the trust, were meant to do if one of the beneficiaries needed some money, if one of the boys wanted to go to private school, if Kouri wanted to buy a car? What was the process from your understanding?
So the trust was actually just split into two separate trusts. One for his 3 boys, who are the primary beneficiaries, and then another trust for Kouri. And you'll have to forgive me, I don't have the whole thing memorized.
Oh, of course not.
But it said in there what the money could be used for.
All right. So if Kouri wanted to spend some money out of the trust that was authorized in your opinion under the trust, it would be your job to say, yes, here is the money, and give her a check, right?
Correct.
And one of the things the trust authorized was care and maintenance of their home. Is that right?
So that the home is a trust asset.
Okay. So if the house needed repair, the trust could pay for that.
Correct.
If the trust could pay for the mortgage payments,
Correct.
the trust could pay for insurance on the house.
Correct.
So in the year after Eric died, how much money did Kouri ask you for to pay for anything related to the house, to her, to anything?
Pause for 1 second.
Your Honor, objection.
It ended up, he objected there, and it ended up that she never did. She didn't ask for any money. So that's, she finished up her testimony. Her testimony was the bulk of the day. She spoke for the longest part. You can go watch that whole thing too if you want. Next on the stand was her husband. His name is Clint. He was friends with Eric, as I mentioned earlier. He actually owned the home. He works in real estate and mortgages and stuff like that. And once Eric died, Kouri was charged, left the home. He was charged with watching out over the house. And he put up cameras to make sure people weren't coming and going. Anytime somebody went to the house to look, he was there. And that included private investigators, the actual investigators, the criminal investigators. He talked about going inside. He was asked about a missionary journal of Eric's. Eric went on a mission. I don't know if that's going to come into play later on. He asked the question, said there was a journal, and that was it. I think that they might be mentioning that for something that's going to come later. And then he was asked about a phone call that Eric made that Clint witnessed in November of 2020. So remember, he died in March of 2022. So this was, 2.5 years or a year and a half before he died. Here was what happened during that phone call.
I'd like to turn your attention to November of 2020. Were you present with Katie when there was a phone call from Eric?
I was.
Okay. And could you hear the phone conversation?
I could. She had it on speakerphone.
I see. You had met Eric prior to that. I mean, you had known him for some years
Yes.
before that.
Yes.
So could you tell what his demeanor was like?
I could. He was extremely distressed. I mean, he was really upset.
Angry upset or sad upset or a little bit of both? I mean,
It was a combination of both.
I see. Did he explain to you why he was upset? I'm not asking you what he said. I'm asking, did he explain why he was upset?
Yes.
Okay. Having heard that, did you do something to assist with the situation?
I did.
What did you do?
I knew he was on his way over to our home after overhearing the conversation with Katie. In the amount of time it took him to get from where he was to our house, I was able to pull up the Summit County website, the recorder's website, where I could pull up the property address as well as the parcel ID and be able to view all of the recorded documents against the home.
I see. And when you looked at that, did you find something that concerned you about the 282 Willow Court?
I did.
And what was that?
I found a $250,000 home equity line of credit that was taken out against Eric's house.
Did you pass that information on to Eric?
Yes.
Okay. After that conversation, that passing of that information, can you relate to us Eric's demeanor from that point?
Yeah, his demeanor was still very upset and very sad in general. So,
do you know what he did following that?
What he did following that, so we had a discussion about divorce attorneys while he was there as a result of finding out about that line of credit.
So, how did you suggest a name?
I did.
Okay. Was that on request, or were you encouraging?
It was on request, and so I mean, obviously Eric was extremely upset about what was happening, and it was just that conversation we were having where it was the next step would be to get a divorce attorney involved.
So that was clear that Eric was looking at getting a divorce. Clint becomes the intermediary between the divorce attorney and Eric, and says that he will do all the communication between the divorce attorney and his brother-in-law, Eric. He goes on to talk about how when he went over the morning that Eric died, he took Eric's boys, the 3 boys, and his 2 girls upstairs to the bonus room where they played games. There was a TV and everything, and they were able to keep the kids distracted. But then when the emergency responders left with Eric's body being wheeled out, he says that 2 of the boys were able to look out the window and see their dad leaving. He was covered with a sheet. One of the boys was very upset. The other was more stoic and kept it together. And but he always will remember that moment, and that's when his wife went and told Kouri, "You've got to tell the boys." And so she did. She told the boys that their father had died. The defense went on to ask some questions about his involvement with the private investigator. So the family hired a private investigator, took the private investigator who was paid, I don't remember what the amount they said, but Clint went over with the private investigator to go through the home, and the defense asked a bunch of questions of, did he move stuff? Did he do this? Did he do that? Were your eyes on him at all times? Here's a little bit of that conversation.
You were very involved in what Mr. Gabler was investigating, fair to say?
He's the PI.
Yes.
And you knew that he was investigating Kouri in order to try and come up with something that would result in criminal charges, fair?
No, that's not fair.
That's not fair.
No.
Well, isn't it?
Todd investigated for the truth. He made it clear that no matter what, we had to be comfortable with the truth, no matter what that answer is.
And the truth that you were looking for was information to charge Kouri Richins.
I'll let him answer that. Ask that, then. I'll let him answer that, and we need to move on. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, sorry, you can ask the question.
The truth you were looking for was evidence to charge Kouri Richins.
That's false.
All right. However, Mr. Gabler was supplying evidence to Summit County investigators at least as early as November of 2022, correct?
I don't know the exact date.
Well, when he would send information to investigators, would he copy you on those emails?
I don't recall if I received all correspondence with that. I couldn't tell you exactly.
Did you receive correspondence?
I did.
So after Clint's testimony, it was Deputy Vincent Wynn. The majority of his testimony, probably 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes or so, at least with the prosecution, was the body camera footage. And we put it all up. I was going to play some clips where, I don't know, what do you think? Should I play? I'll play a little bit. This is when you can go watch the whole thing. And this was the majority of the prosecution. Then the defense had questions. I don't think I'm going to get to that tonight. I know a lot of you did not like the defense attorney, Alex. I forget his last name. I have it right here. He liked to end all of his questions with, not all of them, Alex Ramos, correct? So it would be like, you walked down the hall, correct? And I know a lot of you did not like that. But there was a lot of stuff on Twitter saying this is an effective cross-examination. He was trying to basically prove the point that why didn't the investigators go to the sink when they learned that Kouri and her husband had a celebratory drink before bed? No one went to the sink to check the cups out. And why? And the officer said that wasn't his job. That was part of somebody else's. I'm jumping ahead of that. He'll be back on the stand tomorrow. Here's a little bit of the body camera footage from his camera when he walked in the house and they found Eric was dead.
Sure. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm here on downtime. The niece is since we got here. He's had 2 Eppies, a Narcan. 2 Eppies, 1 Narcan. Blood sugar is 458.
Oh.
Pam, you want to come out here?
No history. Chest pain when he went to bed.
What's your first name? What's your first name? Yeah, let me talk to you out here for a second. Let them do their work in there. So what happened today?
He was just fine. We were fine.
When you say we were fine, what time did you see him when he was alert?
We had a drink together at 9 to celebrate something at work tomorrow.
Okay.
We went to bed. I went to bed with my kids. He went to bed in our bed.
What time did you guys go to bed?
9:30.
9:30. Okay.
9:45.
And then what alerted you to him today? Right now.
When I just woke up, when I sleep with my kids, I'll wake up and I go back in my own bed.
Mm-hmm.
I just crawled over on his side.
And he was laying in bed? Okay.
He was on his back on the bed, and
Okay. And you said he was on his back? Okay. Where are your children now?
to sleep in that room. 2 are awake with their ear to the door. I don't want them to come out. Please don't make them come out.
Where are the other 2 at that are awake?
No, my bedroom.
And where is that at?
It was there, first one to your left.
Okay. Is there any family members we can call right now?
Yeah, I need to call my mom. I need to call my mom so bad.
Okay.
I think I don't know. 911's on the phone. I don't know.
Here. Okay.
I call my mom.
Yep. I'll give you a phone right now, okay?
I need to call his dad. He's gonna be okay, right? Like I got in bed and then I just got.
Yeah, they're doing their best, okay, ma'am? Here, you can use my phone.
So she calls and she ends up contacting Katie, who we heard earlier, and we saw a body camera clip from when Katie came over. Again, this whole body camera footage we saw today is about 25 minutes, so I'm not playing it all. You can go watch the whole thing. We've got it up. Here is Katie's reaction, Eric's sister, when she showed up. Remember, her daughter was sick. They threw the kids in the car with her husband along the way. their husband takes the girls to be with the little boys, Eric's children and Kouri's children, and then Katie comes in. This is how that clip went.
Clint, here, he's gonna help. Where are my boys?
The kids are in
This is where's my brother?
He's in this room.
No. Do I see my brother? Can't see. Baby.
Kouri, is there a way we could relocate your boys upstairs?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lot of traffic.
Yeah, I'll tell her now. What? Wait, come on. Come on. Come on. See you. Bob, come on. Come on, Bob. They want all the kids up. I love you so much. Come on, my sweetheart. Come on, sweetheart. Come on.
We're good now. I can explain to her if you want to go.
I am his everything. I'm his for his will, everything. I'm his power of attorney. I'm his everything.
And we don't have to
Go
worry
upstairs.
about that kind of stuff right now.
Upstairs with the boys. Go upstairs with the boys. I'm sorry. This is
No, it's all it's natural, okay? Just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
Okay, I gotta breathe. Oh my God, I gotta breathe. I just talked to him like a couple hours ago. I know. We were in the bathroom. Everything was fine. Everything was fine. And he just woke up and he wasn't breathing. He wasn't breathing. I went to bed. I went back to bed because I have nightmares. So I went back in our room and I was breathing. And I just turned over to cuddle him, and his body was just so cold. He'd been gone a while.
So the only information I know from what the medical staff that was here is he was cold to the touch, okay, and it seemed like he was down for a while.
We went to bed, he was fine at 9:30. I mean, that's when I went to the bedroom with Ashton. I mean, so unless he went, but I didn't hear anything. He didn't yell. He didn't say anything was wrong. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Oh my God, this is not real. Nothing happened. I didn't hear anything. And right across the room, if he was in pain, why didn't he yell?
So that is another clip from that video. Hard to watch, but they played a lot of that. The defense then continued the cross-examination, and they will continue it tomorrow. So Deputy Wynn will be back on the stand in the morning. And we also heard they talked about who else is going to testify tomorrow. Let me pull it up. Some paramedics, some other officers on scene. They have several witnesses lined up for tomorrow. So here's how you can watch. 8:15 Mountain Time. We'll be back on the East Idaho News YouTube channel. I'll do a brief recap for about 15 minutes to let you know what's coming up tomorrow and what happened today. If you missed, we kind of just did the recap, but tune in at 8:15. 8:30 we go live with the court trial. And then I'll be doing my written updates too on eastidahonews.com. And then we'll be back tomorrow. We will start at 7. Hopefully the technical grumblings have worked themselves out, and we'll be back here tomorrow night for Courtroom Insider. Want to thank newspapers.com. They are our sponsor. We have some questions from you, I know, and we have some shout outs. So we're going to get to those. Newspapers.com. They've been a great partner to work with. You can go to newspapers.com, search to your heart's delight, whatever you want to look up, and find some really interesting stuff on there. So big thanks to newspapers.com for sponsoring Courtroom Insider. Let me get to your shout-outs and your questions and your cities. Peggy's been great sending these along to us. Peggy is our moderator. She was on most of the day today, so everybody say hi to Peggy. Want to say hello to Gabby Cesar, Deborah Owens, Lisa Duff, Diane, Ray Strader, Cynthia Martin, Libby Bodstron, Vic Smith, Kokomo, Indiana. I think you meant that as a place, Peggy. Unless someone is named Kokomo and their last name's Indiana, that would be amazing. Kim Brown, thanks for watching. We have people watching in Georgia, Ammon, Idaho, just down the street, Ottawa, Canada, Costa Rica, Ogden, Utah, Lake County, Ohio, Culver City, California. Hope to visit you soon, New Mexico, and Silverdale, Washington. Thank you very much for watching. Couple of questions. John Smith asked, was Rachel Smith in Lori Vallow's trial as well? Yes, she was, but she's not in this one, John. That's not Rachel Smith. That's Catherine Nestor, the defense attorney. So that might look like Rachel Smith, but that's not her. Lisa, how long after he died was Kouri charged with his murder? It was a little bit of time. Hi, Emmy. Emmy, my daughter's coming in here. She was charged first with the aggravated murder and then the actual murder. Do you want to come in and say hi?
Sure. Hi.
Emmy's here, everybody. Say hi to Emmy. I'll be out soon. I like your shirt. Okay, is Kouri out on bail? No, she's tried to get out on bail many, many times, but she's not out on bail. Let's see. What question? The prosecutor. Why did the defense attorney question the officer on the stand first instead of the prosecutor? The prosecutor did. The prosecutor questioned first. It wasn't the defense attorney. Dear Nate, there's 24 seats total in the audience meeting. The media takes up 10 and the family 2, so there are only 8 seats. No, there's 12 seats on each row, except the media row I think has 10, or they're fitting 12. Then there's 2 seats for the family, the second and the 5th row, and then the general public get 3rd and 4th. So there's 24 seats total, 3rd and 4th row for the public. It's very hard to get in. Daybell, there were 50, 60. In Idaho, in Arizona, more. So yeah, it's a small courtroom. You might not have much luck getting in. I apologize to bring that to you. Here's where you can find me. I'm on Facebook, I'm on X, Insta, and if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, please do so. That way you'll get alerted every time we go live. Just have to thank you so much for watching. I gotta admit, I feel a little rusty. Like we haven't done this, but it's gonna get good. We're gonna get smooth. We'll be back tomorrow night. Thank you, everybody, for watching Courtroom Insider. Big thanks to newspapers.com, our sponsor. Also to Peggy, who has done such a great job helping us out. And we just appreciate everybody being here. And we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8:15 Mountain Time. Hope you are here and hope you are have a good night's sleep. See you in the morning. Bye-bye.